Today we're joined by Jason Eubanks, the CEO and co-founder at Aurasell. In this episode, we get to know our new sponsor, who they are, why they exist, and how they're helping modern revenue teams win.
I think it's important to make sure that your co-founding partners are complementary in skill set, like-minded and aligned on the problem.
We'll dig into Jason's founder journey from operator to builder.
I've been a go-to-market operator for 20 years. I don't wake up at 3 a.m. and obsess over product. And then one day I did wake up at 3:15 a.m. obsessing over a product problem.
The moment that sparked Aurasell.
And what blew my mind even more than that, as I started to do some research, is that on average, every dollar of software you spend historically has carried with it $3 of services. And so if it's a $250 million TAM, it's $1 billion spend.
The lessons behind validating the problem, raising the round, and building the world's first AI-native CRM platform.
Today's episode is sponsored by Aurasell. Intelligently automate every aspect of your sales cycle with the first AI-native full-stack GTM platform. Welcome to Hunters and Unicorns. I'm Simon Kutis and I'm joined by my co-host Ollie Kune.
Welcome back to the show, everyone.
And it's with pleasure that we welcome back Jason Eubanks. Jason, welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. It's always a pleasure to spend time with you, and I appreciate the opportunity to come chat with you today.
By way of an introduction, you are the founder and CEO of Aurasell. And in this part, we want to talk about the founder journey because lots and lots of people in our industry, they've got an entrepreneurial spirit and they've all dreamed of going out and finding their own business, and you've done it, but you've also done it in quite a remarkable way. So tell us a little bit about your journey so far.
Happy to. By the way, you introduced me as a founder. I am a founder, but I'm a co-founder. Yeah. So I'm a co-founder and CEO. I have a co-founder and CTO, and I'll elaborate on that a bit as we unpack the journey. My co-founder and CTO was an SVP of product engineering at the former company that we worked at together for 5 years, where I was running go-to-market as a CRO at Harness. So I think one of the first things to talk about is just recognize that, you could have a great idea and maybe you want to go out and start your own business, and you have to make sure that you have the ability to execute. And I think one of the most impactful decisions you're going to make as a founder is whether you're going to go solo or you're going to have a co-founding team. And in that process, I think it's important to make sure that your co-founding partner or partners are complementary in skill set, like-minded and aligned on the problem, and as close to equally distributed in equity and share of ownership of this company as you can get. I've been a go-to-market operator for 20 years, leading sales, marketing, and CS teams. I actually never really chased being a founder as a thought process. In fact, I used to say to people, to investors, that I would get asked along the way, hey, why don't you go out and start your own company? You've scaled companies from $1 million to $400 million in ARR. You know the playbook. You go start a company. And when somebody would say that to me, I would often reply with something like, hey, I'm a go-to-market leader. I do scale businesses as part of a partnership with the co-founders, and I don't wake up at 3 a.m. and obsess over product. I wake up obsessing over other things, but not product problems. And then one day I did wake up at 3:15 a.m. obsessing over a product problem. And ultimately that's became the genesis for starting this company. And so I would say for us at Aurasell, we started the company around a passion for the problem that we had firsthand experience with for 2 decades. And that passion for the problem and our deep understanding of the way it was impacting the personas of the problem is what led to us deciding to go build an AI native platform to address it. that's another key point to kind of slow down and consider. After I left Harness, I actually thought that I was going to spend the next like 10 to 15 years of my career as an investor. There were a couple things that happened along the way. One, I lived in the middle of the country. And most VCs want their partners to be local to the office. That didn't work real well for me as initially. But there was a partner who I had known for years at Next 47. He called me up kind of out of the blue and asked what I was doing next. I said, actually, I have intentions of becoming an investor. And he invited me to come along with Next 47. And so I was brought in as a partner. And I would come into the office. I would come into the Bay every other week. I would participate remotely on the off weeks. And I would sit in on the pitches, the internal meetings, the decision-making process. And we agreed that at the end of that 6 months, if it worked, they liked me, I liked them. I thought I enjoyed it. They thought I was good at it, that we would just convert that into a full-time opportunity. And there were a couple things that happened in that process. One was that I realized about 3 weeks in, I didn't like investing as a VC as much as I thought I would. And there's a couple of other turning points, I think, in that period of time that led to starting Aurasell, is that most of the new companies being started, I felt that their definition of the problem and their approach to solving the problem around applying AI to go to market was just too narrow. I was a sales leader at 4 startups before starting this company. And one of the consistent things that we always wrestled with was maximizing productivity per head of our sellers, especially as you scale across growth tranches. It's easy to micromanage sellers when you have 5 of them. When it becomes 50 or 100, it's impossible. And as you add more sellers and more leaders to manage those sellers, they bring variability to your execution model. And you end up spending an increasing percentage of your resources and time chasing that variability at every leadership level of the organization as you scale. And part of the contributing factors to these problems aren't just the number of humans you're bringing in, it's the number of tools that those sellers are being asked to interface with. Your average seller will use 10 to 12 products every day they work. Now, for me at Harness, we had over 20 products in our go-to-market tool stack. We're spending $3 million a year in SaaS fees. Sellers taking the impact of contact switching across using 10 to 12 products, might be a different set of products on PG Tuesdays than it is on Forecast Fridays, but it's still 10 to 12 products. And then juggling the processes across all of them from the seller's point of view, from the operational perspective, juggling data silos and workflow engines that are stepping on top of each other, troubleshooting that brittle stack. It just became an enormous resource suck, and I believe led to the increase of productivity loss. And thinking about that problem, you also have to consider, from an infrastructure perspective, the data silos that you create. You unintentionally create data silos. So you have a CRM, you think you're bringing in 20 products that make it better for your sellers. They all bring in their own database. They all bring in their own reporting layer. They all bring in a workflow engine. And what gets pushed into the CRM are field level updates. The metadata about the activity that rides on that particular product sits in the database in that data silo for those other 20 products. And the contextual awareness that allows us to automate, to use AI to automate with high quality outcomes, often that contextual awareness lives in the metadata. When you trap it across these data silos, it's incredibly problematic. So having lived through that problem, having made what I think now is a mistake in today's era, but certainly pre-AI was not a mistake. You were doing the best you had with what was available. You unintentionally create a shadow IT org. You unintentionally make your CROs CIOs. You unintentionally create these data silos. And now when you try to put AI on top of it, you're sprinkling AI across sort of a Jenga stack of infrastructure and expecting transformational outcomes when you've handicapped the potential of the AI platform. So I had that point of view as an investor, but we kept looking at, you'd look into the market and you'd see a lot of these like niche agentic plays. And to me, like, yeah, there's value in that, but they're small AI tricks. They're small AI niche things, unlocking some account research, some contact intelligence, some this, that, right? But really, what would have been meaningful to me and the way I was looking at it as an operator at that time is for the entire stack to be AI native, for the entire stack to work together with a single AI logic layer that drove high quality automation that freed up my very expensive sellers to go attack the market. And I just didn't see anybody building it that way. And initially, it wasn't obvious that we were ready to go tackle this problem in the go-to-market space. But as I worked with founders and as a venture, partner for that next few months, it became increasingly clear until one day, back to where the story started at 3:15 in the morning, I did wake up obsessed over this and documented all of the technology I was using as an operator in a Google Keep file. Documented the roles, documented the activities they do, documented the technology they use to execute those activities, put down the spend that I could recall that we had when I was at Harness. And then I put down the revenue of all those companies, the top companies in all those, categorically in all those spaces. And then I put down the market cap. I totaled it all up and I looked at it and thought, wow,
it's a big problem.
This is a huge problem. And what blew my mind even more than that, as I started to do some research, is that in that space, on average, every dollar of software you spend historically has carried with it $3 of services. And so if it's a $250 million TAM, it's $1 billion spend. You say, well, if we used AI in a native way, we could garner intelligence that are not just insights to be delivered in analytics, but it's actionable automation. And so 3 weeks out from that 6-month period of my venture contract ending, I approached Locke, who was head of Next 47, and said, hey, I'm not going to renew this. It turns out venture, I'm not as good of a fit for venture as I thought I was. And he said, okay, I kind of felt like maybe that's where your head was. What are you thinking about doing? And I told him, I said, I'm going to start a company. That we were walking out of a meeting with a founder at 2:30 in the afternoon in San Francisco in downtown. And Locke calls me. Said, hey, were you serious about starting a company? I said, absolutely. And then he asked me, he said, hey, do you have a co-founder? Do you have a CTO? I said, yeah, I have somebody in mind. And gave him Srinivas's name and profile. I think we had 2 more calls during the day, vetting out some details. By 6:30 that evening, I was on a call with all the other GPs in his business. And, they said, okay, we want to invest. He said, what are you looking to raise? I said, well, we're going to raise $25 million in our seed round. He said, okay, we'll do it. And I said, okay. How much of the lead position do you want? And they said, no, we'll take the whole 25 million. So that was 6:30 at night. The first phone call came in at 7:30 in the morning. That was 6:30 at night. And our intended seed round of 25 million was accounted for. We felt like we wanted enough capital that we could build with velocity because we believe the opportunity is so big. And we wanted to be able to build not only with velocity, but in a way that we weren't forced to make product level concessions, but ended up walking it down closer to 30 million.
I want to take this opportunity to ask you all very kindly to go and hit the subscribe button. Whether you're on YouTube, iTunes, or Spotify, it will mean the world to us if you could hit that subscribe button. It means we can continue to bring you great content and will ensure that you don't miss out on any of our great content.
It's a ridiculously fascinating story, and I think, like most founders, these ideas come from a passion, or it's a tooling that right now this is a big problem. There's nothing out there to solve this problem. We need to go out and solve it, right? And I think you having a passion for your go-to-market and the problem itself. But talk to us about external validation of how you go out and validate. This isn't just my idea. This is an idea that is as big a problem as I think it is.
We went out and we put together a panel of partners, development partners. And in our panel of development partners, of course, we had CROs. I had CROs, COOs, CEO. But we also brought in early in career sellers, account managers, commercial reps. We brought in some SDRs. We brought in VPs of ops. So we brought in, we built a panel of development partners that represented a distribution of all of our personas that we were building to serve. And every time we would build, even really from the planning stages, before we built code, we would architect the problem and our planned solution. When that became a Figma file, product design, UI design, we would share that with them and get multiple rounds of feedback. And then as we were building, we'd have weekly touch points that would rotate through these personas and people, and just we were looking for constant signal, constant pattern matching on that signal, so we could have constant innovation and make small adjustments really fast. I do believe it gave me a bit of an unfair advantage, and I think Srinivas did a great job in building engineering really quickly and product management very quickly, and we were executing very tight loops of feedback together, but we also took me out of that feedback loop, and sometimes at the design stage, sometimes at the verification or validation stage, and made sure that those PMs were meeting directly, and our engineering teams were meeting directly with the personas on that panel as well.
I mean, it's a truly fascinating story and journey, and it's not just the outcomes of you being able to kind of raise the amount of money, but I think what it really demonstrates is that maniacal focus on understanding the problem that you're looking to solve, but not trying to find a solution that you want to sell, but really all of those kind of feedback loops and the committees and the way that you've actually designed the product from start to finish is very much customer problem centric. You're not trying to be a nice to have. You're trying to really address the friction, the pain that drives urgency and outcomes. And I think with that mindset, it's no surprise that you're building something so meaningful and so many people want to be part of your journey and invest in you. And we're really excited to see where this goes. So again, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your journey. And we look forward to seeing how things unfold.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys having me.
It's always a pleasure, Jason. So to all our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. If you've liked what you've heard, please do subscribe to our various channels on iTunes, YouTube, and Spotify. All the links will be in the description below, and we look forward to welcoming you back for another session very soon. Take care and goodbye.